Just send a note.
Saturday, Friday.
Brandon, I just always assume that the mics are on and they're very sensitive, so.
Yeah. Gotcha. I'll follow up.
Great. So now we're going to move on to general government. And in each department, you're going to see a chart kind of showing that department as a percentage of the budget. And you're going to see probably several large jumps like you see here. And a lot of that due to reshifting the IT costs. Some of those IT contracts are expensive. And so some departments are moving around. And yeah, so this chart may not be as helpful this year as it is a normal year because some of these kind of artificially inflated. And what I'll do is I'll go line by line. Several of these have backups, and we can work through each backup individually. And then if you guys just have questions or comments, let me know. Some of these things I will definitely be referring to Leon. Advertising we've set at the same amount we set basically every year. This is one of those wildly variable things. I anticipate FY 2022 we're going to probably be over because we just had a lot of signs and a lot of ads in the newspaper. So we just assume $5,000 each year. It kind of goes up and down as needed. Employee relations. This is carrying over from last year, and you'll see that in this year so far, we have not spent a lot of the money in 2021. We didn't spend a lot of the money, and that's because some of the employee relation things kind of fell off for COVID. So we are looking to try to get back into our quarterly get-togethers, Christmas parties, 4th and commission parties, that sort of thing. Pet helpers is a fixed rate, has been for a while. Same with the Sandsburg contribution and the Community Promotions Committee. Just one note about the community promotions, and this could just be a matter of advertising. If you look back 2020, 2021, and so far 2022, we've not been distributing all the money we've given. So we may need to maybe juice up promoting that committee and let people know it's there.
Well, some of that too is COVID related. I mean, it's like the and the peer related some, but just like the Folly anglers had to take a kid fishing day every year. They would go to this group and get some money to help pay for a free fishing tournament for kids. But they haven't done it since COVID's been around. And then this year you couldn't do it because last year you couldn't do it because the peers failed. So some of that gets kind of juggled around that way. So if they don't need the money, they don't come ask for it because they're not going to spend it. So
Question off the top. How do you have a 2023 March actual column?
I think those were mislabeled 2021, 2022.
Okay.
Yeah. What? A 2023 March actual?
Just read that as 2022. Okay. I'll confirm and read that.
Unless he's,
yeah. He's not only in Texas, he's in the future, guys.
Well, hey, if somebody's talking about time travel, it's possible. When time travel is possible, don't you? We do it every day, 1 second at a time.
Yeah. So we'll keep going. The environmental law project, that's probably going to fall out of the budget next year. It was a one-time thing. Records digitization has kind of been distributed to other departments. And one new program that we started last year that's not proposed to be renewed this year is the graffiti bounty program. That we had no one take us up on that.
How was that to work?
Mechanically. If you reported someone, I don't know if there's a verb for doing graffiti, making graffiti, and they were later caught and convicted, you got an award. And no one, to my knowledge, took advantage of that.
Where is that?
That's line 3011, public property defacement bounties. That was a program Lee championed last year, but no one took him up on it. So
we need to advertise that one.
All right.
That's the one we need to advertise.
Would you like to put it back in the budget?
Change it to our coyote bounty.
We know that. We don't have to. Deer bounty.
So a pretty big bobcat the other day.
Bobcats.
The strolling fifth block.
Bobcats are good. They eat most of the mice, the rats.
Aaron, I did have one question. I know, Pet Helpers have requested again $8,500 as an increase. And I know that we've not had, Chief, we haven't had an official animal control officer on the board.
No, weed does handle a lot of that, but we just divvy it up amongst the patrol staff. Animal calls are down, actually.
You don't get a lot of them.
Yeah, but I know they handle a good bit of the birds and stray animals that we do take in. Has that had an impact at all on Pet Helpers, you think, or have they had an increase in calls that we do?
This is gonna come out worse than I intended.
Let me answer
I
that.
can't understand.
Let me answer that. Hang on a second. For years, we told them to give us a sheet, asking for a monthly call log of calls that actually logged in. They
Okay.
have not done that. So
Through dispatch.
give it to your dispatch.
Right.
Yeah, or through their dispatch. If they're saying, well, they call us directly, okay, well, give us a list of when you came out here on a call. We have not got that.
And I just wanna make sure that mayor and council, I think it was after the election, but Ed, if you didn't get one, we'll get you a copy. Ms. Linville did bring in her handwritten notes, and I just wanna make sure y'all got y'all's copies.
Yeah.
That's where you decide. You get a copy.
They're not spoke to her on the phone.
Yeah, because I got it in my copy this morning, so it was handwritten. So the handwritten is not what you want something that's.
So the mayor's correct, that each year at budget time, we've asked them to please properly document as they go through our system.
Right.
But we actually asked them to do it like on a monthly basis, so it wouldn't be just all at the end of the year.
Okay. So that's a deterrent of giving her more money, or is that?
That's a big question.
I was gonna bring it up, because one thing that did stand out to me was, we used the Keepers of the Wild and the bird sanctuary lot.
Right.
So if we did bump that up, putting Pet Helpers / Keepers of the Wild / birds, whatever the other one is,
I think
and
you
raising it, just, and let them
keep
make
that
a
from
donation.
getting really messed up. If you wanna add a line, instead of just Pet Helpers, you have to add a line, Keepers of the Wild. So if you wanna go up $2,000 to Keepers of the Wild, and keep it separate, completely separate line item, because that way you won't have the argument about, well, we did this, we did that, blah, 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 you know, back.
I got
Because I know she uses that sometimes to transfer the
And
birds.
that money can satisfy their, because we're contributing for that, because we use those programs, and then they might not feel as that money would be, I don't know, I think it would work out better that way.
Okay.
If we did that.
Okay.
Kind of earmark that for later on, once we get into the nitty gritty.
Thank you.
Well, she said she was gonna give some of her money to Keepers of the Wild, so if we give money to Keepers of the Wild, it's kinda like bumping them up a little bit.
Right.
Now, they don't have to unless they want to.
Right, we do specifically use this program, so money from the city would be good.
Mhm.
But, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, just keep it a line item, so it stays clean. Okay, sorry about that.
No problem. Repair and maintenance, again, this is kind of a number that they puts in as his best guess every year. Operating supplies, you'll see gone up pretty significantly, and we'll talk to that when we get to the back sheets, so there's some IT stuff coming out. Utilities are up. We'll just scroll down here to show you highlight line 6100 general insurance. We've had, I don't know if backup is here, but we had a pretty big insurance increase. And if it's not in the back, I can get you guys the details of that, but I do want you to see that our insurance costs are going up this year.
We're down to insurance.
Yeah, we're down.
What happened to operating supplies?
I said we're gonna do that, we'll get to the back tab.
Okay, sorry.
I'm just covering the top sheet, and then we can get into the detail. Just want to make highlights of beach and marsh. I've got several reserve contributions here. Holding steady at $50,000 for the beach and marsh legal acquisition fund. Steady for reserve for claims and judgments, but then you'll see the big one here is a $303,000 input into grant matching. That's just us trying to really beef up that account to get as much money as possible.
So that it's on hand.
Yeah, so we have it, so we can apply for stormwater, water, property, whatever grants we apply for, that's where the money comes out for our match. And since we're fortunate to have a good year, we want to make some investments in our savings accounts, basically. be prepared for the future. So that's the top sheet, and then we'll go to the operating supplies back sheet. And that's got, you'll see the, IT. I'm just making sure. And you guys, as we go through this, I appreciate everyone helping me confirm that these bottom line numbers on the back sheets are carried over properly to the top sheet. It seems like every year we find a couple, but this one's true. So 48,700.
Wait, where are we?
On the operating supplies, right beyond that.
Office supplies?
Yes, sir. So again, so we're just discussing that sheet. We've got office supplies holding steady, a bump in the business licenses. I don't have a number for you because they don't break it down that way, but that increase is actually offset because we sell the extra stickers. We've been giving out more stickers. Everyone gets 2 free, then you have to pay for them. So even though we're buying more at a higher cost, we're selling the extras. They just don't break down that revenue for us. And then, the big ads here are the IT contracts. And what we did for this is we went through all of last year's IT operating supplies, contracts, and salaries. And of course, salaries and benefits were off the table. And then we took the operating supplies and contracts and sat down with department heads and said, guys, this is the FY22 budget. This is what's left, what you need. And we priced that out with BC3. And we're working through getting quotes and spending the FY22 budget. And then we asked, what will you need in FY23? And we sat down with BC3 and said, okay, this is hypothetical. The administration department's going to need 4 more laptops, and BC3 did their thing, so that's how much it costs. So these are based on estimates from BC3 for these items for each department. And that's much in the detail I can give you on those. If anyone in particular you want to break down on, I'll work on it. But basically, we sat down, went through last year's budget, and said, guys, tell us what we can estimate for next year. So they fed this back to us.
We already need an IT closet relocation.
We got. Is that what we're moving forward with? Out of the 22 budget?
No, decided to put that on.
Yeah, it's gonna be like $20,000, right?
Yeah,
That's
Or
right.
something like that, yeah.
And we found, well, it wasn't actually an OSHA violation, but it is something that needs to be fixed, and it's about $20,000. And it's somewhere in the FY23 budget. I'll find it as we go.
I mean, you got 20,000 right here for IT closet relocation. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm going ahead.
yeah. Okay, so it is in the budget.
Yeah,
Coming up.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
All right, so then on contracts, it's the same. You'll see that, oddly, this is the only department where he didn't backdate this contract from previous years. So it looks like a big jump, but all that big jump is various things that were charged to the IT department now being charged to the general government, and then you'll see the IT closet relocation repair. It's 20,000. We've got a bunch of servers and wires in what can only be described as a hot mess in a closet over in the IT department. And even though it's not technical OSHA violation, it is a safety violation, we believe, and also just from a security and organizational standpoint.
Who says it's a,
It's ad hoc.
who says it's a violation?
Well,
Have you received any official?
OSHA said no, it's not against them, but Andrew and Rocky, could you guys address the IT closet?
But it's where your roof access is and all the electronic connections and public safety. And the way it currently is I guess, Aaron, it's hard to explain the thought process, but I
The
guess,
Aaron Strancy.
Yeah,
who used to
sorry.
work here.
just ran all the items in a server in that room, and it's just really unorganized, messy, and it's in the way of all the electronic equipment, or the electronic panels, and roof access.
But we don't have any authoritative, entity
No,
finding
initially-
us or anything like that.
Initially, we thought it was good, it was gonna be an OSHA violation just for, trip hazard and all that, but,
No sled violations?
uh,
No sled violations on that?
as long as that room's locked and has,
No access.
limited
Okay.
access, then it's not good. It's more of a, it's just,
the moment we need someone to do work on the roof, they could kick the cables and
Oh, yeah,
take
for
us
sure.
down.
Yeah, it's just, it looks like a, kind of a,
He's gonna give y'all a guided tour.
yeah.
To me,
I've seen it.
y'all wanna go look at it.
So all of
Everybody
this
there
IT stuff in blue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Aaron, I believe it was last year, the ordinance, we changed our investment policy to kind of capture greater rates of return. Are there corresponding investment advisory fees that we pay now?
I will have to,
So I don't see
where
them on
that is
here.
in the budget. I'm fairly confident that all of the money that's invested is in the beach fund, so it wouldn't be in this budget. Let me just swing back to the beach preservation fund. Yeah, he's got professional services, consulting, monitoring, legal. I don't see necessarily investment fees, so I'll ask him about that. All that invested money is from the beach fund.
What code tab is that?
That's way at the back, that's some kind of orangey yellow tab, right before
I got it.
It's like
TVPC.
I got it, yeah.
So I'll make a note when we get to the beach preservation fund to ask about that one.
Thank you.
And he has a whole schedule of maturities and fees and what we made and not made, so we can get that to you guys. But one thing I wanna highlight in the general government contract is the line that says IT department services contract for $114,000. And that works out to be about $9,000 a month. Let me tell you for sure. So $9,500 a month. When they first came on last year, they kind of did a broad survey of all the users and equipment we had. Said based on this, we think we'll need this level of support. And they've got tiers of support for different types of employees. And we're currently paying $11,000 and some change per month. But as they've been coming through and setting us up, weeding that down and getting it to a real number, our actual base service contract is dropping down to I think 8,600. When we budgeted 9,500 a month, there's random extras that seem to pop up. We're still finding things where we call them and say, hey, can we do X, Y, Z? But our base contract's going down about $3,000 a month. So you can think of that $114,000 as kind of the replacement for the salary line in the old IT budget.
So but that's going down.
From this year.
You've been satisfied with the service?
I have.
I have too.
I think the biggest kind of, Andrew and Rodney have a slightly different experience, but for us on this side, the biggest thing has been going from having a one person available to help us to having literally an entire company. So, we've got lots of people doing lots of different things at the same time for us that we just couldn't do when we had one person.
Chief, you needed more funding on the other side to fix your deal, or is it just?
No, I would say generally speaking, I feel like we've been pretty happy with it. I would say there's the only downside, at least on our side, it seems like there have been a few projects that have taken maybe a little bit longer, and that may be just because Aaron worked closer with that side. I would say that's definitely probably true. So,
Okay.
I mean, generally speaking, Cody, the representative, is easy to work with and seems to be hardworking. So.
And have they followed through on their commitment to be on site as needed? Or is it difficult to actually get them here versus over the phone?
On our end, they're here. How often is Cody here? Every week?
About
2 or 3
where
days a
we
week.
can schedule them multiple times a week.
I think one thing that, and realistically, it'll probably all of next year. One thing that's different is we're still calling them for more kind of unknown project things. We want somebody, I don't know which ones, a couple of these cameras aren't working. No one in the building knows how they're wired, where they go, because the guy who did it left. So we're still having to call them for little special projects like that. Hey, can you come in and crawl around in the ceiling and figure this out and give us new cameras? So I think that's part of the why we're still kind of not settled into our rhythm. But once all those things get taken care of, I think we'll calm down a bit. So those are the general government contracts. One, let me check what he's got in here. I want you to draw your attention to the annual audit. You'll see that that number is plussed up a good bit. Last year, I believe, we had to do a special audit, and also our current auditors, through staffing challenges, have let us know they won't be able to do the audit this year, and we're going back to the previous auditors on that. So in the case that we do have to do another special single audit, or there's any additional audit work needed to kind of bring the old firm back up to speed, he's got that trust up a good amount. Just want y'all to see that. The business license hearing officer, which is kind of right above the blue at 7,500, that's going down. And that's another one where either we don't need it and we won't spend any of the money, or we need it and we're gonna overspend the money. It's kind of the best guess. So we haven't had a lot of activity since COVID, but we may have more. And the next backup is the
Well,
backup.
wait a minute, you know, since we're talking about, in the proposed short-term rental deal, we, really start doing enforcement, that business license hearing officer might go up.
I'm curious how we're gonna approach that.
But so too could the
Because-
fees,
Huh?
That's
so too could the increased fees.
right, that's
Well,
what I'm saying,
yeah,
so
I'm
how do we
saying-
adjust, or we can't adjust for that right now, we're just gonna have to address that when we talk about short-term rental stuff and see how it fits in. Cause we don't,
Well, you don't.
I was gonna bring it up during fees too, but
It might, you know, adjust the fees up, but I mean, you know, we're guessing that if we start writing those civil tickets, and they actually get, that turns into strikes, now, one or two things can happen, either people pay attention and they fix their problems, or we're taking their business license and then we're here in front of this hearing officer. So, I mean, it's just something to keep in your mind as we go forward for that one. Typically, we haven't used them, but who knows, we might use it.
And I asked Lee, you know, how do we incorporate, in terms of the short-term rental stuff, some of those proposed new monies and proposed new expenditures? He says they don't exist. You know, they don't exist until they're passed, and they won't exist until after the budget is passed. So next year, you know, just if we get it done in August, next year, you know, we may hire some people, we may make in some money, but it's gonna be kind of close. It's like the bond money. It's gonna have to be segregated and used to budget.
Well, actually, if we decide to hire people to make the department, we'll have to come to city council and adjust this budget. So then it'll show up again.
so we can do all that at once, if we have to do a budget adjustment, we can do the fees, I mean, anything that we pass in the short-term rental, we can come back and just adjust it all at once.
On projection, right?
And next year, that's gonna be, it's just gonna be tricky because of the timing, because all the renewals are gonna happen. All the renewals are gonna happen before the budget gets passed. So some of those new rental fees will only be charged for new rental licenses, not renewals, because they'll already be done. So they won't actually come in until the end of next year. So it's just a timing issue. But we basically said in terms of this budget for FY23, ignore all that for now, and then we'll come back once the ordinances are passed and figure out how to
Adjust it.
We used to have a midterm budget, remember that?
Well,
Your budget.
But that was before we went to this kind of budget, it's really, that budget, if you remember, that budget was written in Greek. If you didn't speak Greek, you didn't understand that budget worth of whatever.
It was
So-
Was that Fennell's big thing to get that out of there?
Yeah.
Ironically enough, it's his birthday today.
Oh, that's right, happy birthday, Fidel. I forgot about that. I'm glad you said that, I knew it.
I thought it was kind of funny, you know, first day of budget meetings and it's Fennell Plant's birthday.
Oh, he would love to be here, I'm sure.
And then we've got one more backup page, which is employee relations and celebrations. I'm just gonna check to make sure this is over.
Well, I got a question, because I don't remember.
Looks like employee relations is down by 1,000 from 2021 numbers. So both of these are down by $1,000 from last year. And then the forecast sheet. So Any other questions on general government before we move on to, we're gonna skip over public safety, police, and fire, and dispatch, and public works, and go all the way down to the mayor.
Yeah, I got one for you.
Alright.
In the celebrations part,
Yes, sir.
I don't remember where do we put the money for it?
It's in Eric's budget.
Oh, it's in Eric's place, okay, I couldn't,
He had it in two places, and so it will crop up.
in Eric's place,
It will crop up again. Yes, sir. Let me just make sure, I mean, we would notice it. It's somewhere else, I believe it's in facilities.
Okay.
You got, give me 1 second, I'll check.
because that was a park stopper.
What Christmas tree?
Replaced the one for the Folly River Park, that one was about wore out over
Yes, sir.
12, 14, 13, 15
So
years
that's
time.
gonna go in, facilities?
Yeah, it's an operating supplies for facilities, so we'll talk
But
about that.
it'll be a chunk of his operating
Yeah,
supplies.
yeah.
Okay, so as
So,
long as we got it in there somewhere.
so skip, safety, police, fire, dispatch, and public works. This is all the way to the city council.
Well, actually go to mine didn't really change.
Oh, yes, sorry, the mayor. So the mayor's holding steady on his total percentage of the budget.
0.
Hey, go back to that first pie chart.
So
We'll see who's got the most money in the budget.
rounding, I don't know the.
1% for me, and city council has 2%.
There's 6 of us.
Yes.
Yeah, come on.
So you'll see that the mayor's budget is basically holding even. There are some increases for retirement, FICA, and health insurance, due to our employer absorbed costs for that, but otherwise the mayor is holding steady from last year. Anyone have any questions for the mayor's budget? If not, we can move on to city council's budget. Also holding steady, even though the line is longer, I think it's because it's rounding, but it's still at 2%. You've got those same staff or same salary FICA increase here, and I do want to just go down and talk a couple of things on the backup sheets. So the bottom line is going up. You'll see that there's $10,000 in there going in again, reserving an extra $10,000 to go with $10,000 in reserve last year for our upcoming 50th city anniversary. I know also that FAB and the ATAX committee, FAB applied for some money last year, they'll be applying for some money this year. So we should have a good pool of money for that. But moving to the backup sheets. First thing I see on the backup sheet is we will substitute employee 1010. Yeah, the salary and benefit will be the same. We'll move that. Eddie, we'll make sure that we get your correct health insurance information on this salary budget sheet for city council. So that was Ray email. But then we come to council support, and on council support, which is this is the clerk of council's salary. And there are a couple of things through here, and since this is kind of the first staff person we've discussed, we can kind of go through the same salary lines that you can see for all staff in the book. There's a current salary, there's a promotion and adjustment line, and you can consider that to be kind of a base salary increase. So that's a proposed raise. Outside of the COLA and outside of the merit bonus, that's a proposed raise. Then the merit bonus, all of the departments, as part of the implementation of our compensation strategy, we have moved away from merit raises. It will no longer be permanent merit raises based on one-time good performance. That's kind of the trade-off everyone discussed. As part of sticking to our compensation strategy, which seeks to separate base salaries from performance things and kind of pulling COLAs and merits. In the past, the lines have always kind of been blurred. So in place of permanent merit raises, we have merit incentives. And these are capped at 2%. So throughout this budget, you're going to see various percentages, some at 0.5, some at 1.5, some at 2. And those are based on employee evaluations that were reviewed with the mayor. So anywhere you see a merit bonus, that's a one-time percentage-based payment being approved or paid as a merit incentive based on evaluations by the department head and then later reviewed by the mayor. And then you've got the COLA. So for council support, we've got current salary, a promotion adjustment, merit bonus, and a COLA line. And you'll see those same lines with different numbers for every employee. So that's what we've got proposed for councils.
So sir, if we want to change anything up, we can do that.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I lost you after the, description of the merit.
Okay,
What
so,
we-
and this will be true for every employee. So just coming across the lines, you have your current salary, which is the current.
Which page you on?
The council support salary.
Okay,
So there's a current salary. If any permanent promotion, raise, adjustment is proposed, it's in this. This employee does have one, and that's based on the realignment of the community coordinator position. All of the communications functions of the community coordinator job, our social media, the mass mailings, the public info, and the EFC role have now been inherited by the clerk council position. So this reflects a permanent raise to that base salary, acknowledging that you got a whole employee got a whole new chunk of duties from the community coordinator position, so our job description changed. And then added the next thing is a merit bonus. All of the merit bonuses in the budget, those are one-time merits, not a permanent raise. And then there's the 8% COLA, and that'll get you to the FY23 salary. So as we go through all the departments, it's that same structure.
So this is not specific to West, but this 8% COLA, which we're going to see consistently applied throughout the corresponding pages. Have you done any benchmarking looking at other municipalities and how they intend to handle their budgets for the next year?
I will ask Lee to provide his research. I know he's looked around and they range pretty significantly from full-time or permanent raises of different percentages to one-time offsetting payments. A lot of folks use the ARP money. He's got some backup percent, but beyond the actual benchmarking, it's kind of we're proposing it as a continuation of our compensation strategy, which recommended that the city hold its baseline salaries at a competitive level. And so, because at the time we drafted this budget, we pulled the official inflation rate of 8.5%. I don't know how many months ago it was, I'll ask Lee. And so this 8% was proposed to just basically say salaries are going up 8%, but they're staying the same in terms of monetary value.
See, the reason I ask that is I don't have a great line of sight on municipal budgeting across the state or country, but I'm confident that employer, the corporate America, is not on average giving their employees 8% increases in wage. You should like I know my company's not.
I'll get that research for you. And,
Well, they're certainly deserving.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we're looking at others.
Just remember, he's bashing.
No, certainly not, taking it as a bash. We just like to, especially as an employee, I think over the last few years, the city council and the mayor have been extraordinarily supportive of employees and employee development and implementing the compensation study. It's due for a refresh in 2 years, and so this would continue that trend of keeping employee compensation competitive and attractive. We'll get some benchmarking for you guys too, as reference. Office supplies for city council is the next worksheet. There's $1,000 for city council attainment or city council equipment and chambers. There's actually some more of that later, but we are spending a significant sum of FY 2022 money right now to get some things fixed. And I think we had the quote, it's like $15,000, right?
We should be getting it this week.
So we're working on about $15,000 of corrections to this room, including moving that station out of the hallway there over to the corner somewhere where it's not fire evacuation hazard, and possibly some digital solutions for you guys. So as soon as we get that, Wes will be, we won't be moving forward on any technology proposals for city council until we involve you guys. You're not just gonna show up one day and get an iPad, but so look forward to some planning for that soon to hopefully get some sort of tech for you guys to help make a meeting.
He actually's gonna buy you abacus, a rock, a chisel, and a hammer.
We had the tablets there for a while, and it just I can tell you, I didn't get my agendas printed. I think a couple of us used them and just didn't have our, just that paper savings alone probably equal the tablet, because our agenda's not that big anymore.
Now we print front and back.
Yes, we do.
Thank you, Les.
If we were anarchists, we can do a lot more.
As long as that's page numbers.
Wes
I'm happy.
has already pulled the trigger on a new agenda management software that I think is gonna really benefit you guys. And, our last tablet program, I think was long enough ago now, that there've been kind of advancement in apps and what you can do and what you can't do and real life access to things. So hopefully it'll go well this time around. But we're working on it. But you will see that the city logo apparel line has doubled. That's just to give a little more room in there for city logo shirts and stuff for you guys. And then you've got still some more money in there for that tech stuff.
That's not every 2 years after elections.
Do what?
Send around the catalog.
You do it every year, it depends on how much we give ourselves.
Yeah, y'all can divide it however much you put
It
in.
says double this year because the price of everything's gone up. So last year we were trying to get stuff, we can only get 2 shirts, or a jacket, or something.
So we've done it in my 2 years, we've only done it once. So I don't know if that's on Wes's known to-do list to circulate the catalog. It is.
We have the new 2022 catalog coming. It's ready for pickup. We're waiting for this to pass.
And then, while we're talking about it, is that something, if we know how to get a better rate on it than the city does, is that something where we can purchase something on our own and get reimbursed for it, or do we have to go through the Charleston Cotton Exchange? And they are very proud.
I don't think we have a particular.
We don't really go through Cotton Exchange, we go through that one on Fleming Road, that's not Cotton Exchange. Can't remember the name of it.
O'Connor.
Huh? O'Connor, yeah.
And we're sort of just falling into them over time, so there's
So if nobody's involved with them or has any connections with them, there might want to shop it around a little bit.
Alright, yeah, sure. And the budget line item says city logo apparel, so if you guys come in and say, hey, I know that,
Here's my receipt.
yeah,
Here's the logo of their uppers.
okay.
They're, it's just, you can get Amazon cheaper.
But it's not as good.
Yeah.
Just kidding. But they'll deliver it to the post office, leave it on the desk.
Or deliver to the wrong PO box.
Yeah.
So next up, we have news training and professional development. We're reporting the budget study for council folks. That gets your Massey annual meeting and/or one additional event. And generally, the way that works out is not everyone does an annual meeting, and not everyone does an annual meeting plus one event. So some folks may get a little more, some folks may get a little less, but that's where we balance it out.
Well, and the annual meeting this year is in
Charleston.
Charleston, so we won't have any hotel rooms,
Yeah.
parking tickets, or parking.
I can just do it overhead every year.
So you'll see that the bottom line did go up, and that's and there's kind of two offsetting things. So the last line, the annual long-term strategic planning session, that's been free, and we've basically just been paying for the food for the last few years. And we think those meetings with Massey have been going well. It'll be interesting next year to see how Ashley handled it instead of Charlie. So that's fun. And then we bumped up the dues and training for council support staff to give them that same opportunity for a nationally recognized conference. So that's city council.
No, Eddie said, if you want to keep this budget the way it is, you better be able to help them with that election commission.
Very helpful.
I think that the state should make it mandatory to take the training. Oh, and also, they could tell you that there's training that exists and point you to where it exists so that you know what you're supposed to do rather than finding out what you are supposed to have done by getting a notification of a fine. And now if you get a certified letter and you don't read it, you won't find out that they have a fine acceleration program that you could actually get something accelerated $5 grand. And if you got two of them, that's why I've looked on the news and be like, how does somebody get $20,000 worth of fines? Well, it's like, you know, if you're backing up a truck and you ask somebody to spot you, you know, you would expect them to tell you you're gonna run into something, but that's really not how they operate.
Yeah.
It's like they want you to mess up, so they've got to fund their department somehow. I mean, it's like if you don't file on time, it's $100, but they can contact you and say that something is unfiled, and until it gets filed, you go through this acceleration of fines that up to $5,000, and it's a crime. I didn't know that it was a crime. Not to, you know, what are you in here for? I didn't file my, you know, quarterly one statement, and if they're like that on the quarterly statements, imagine what they're like once they get serious about statement of economic interest and who you working for and get your money for and all this type of stuff. So, I mean,
You know,
I think that it would be good to do us just on our own training. I didn't know that the training existed till I found it. Finally on the side I found it. But they didn't ever tell me, and they tell you the least amount of information so that they can say you've been notified.
I think, you know, we can't control what they do, but I do, one thing we can do, and we will do, is I think we can get out to you guys, you know, the general guidelines, you know, hey, congratulations, you've been elected city council, don't forget to file your Form X, Form Y. Unfortunately, we're not, we can't be involved in the actual filing of it, we literally can't do it, but we can, you know, get it, maybe pass the calendar invites to help you guys, but.
As to what is required to file and when it's required to file it. I mean, I know now, but hey, it's gonna cost me like a mini college education. I mean,
$100. That's happened to me before. $100 fine.
And then you flip the letter over and read on the back that failure to fine is a misdemeanor, and this, after the civil penalties have been assessed, this is being sent to a magistrate's court. So
We could ask the municipal association too, if they have any like training module or something that anybody can look at.
Is this just for the annual statement of economic interest?
if you have an open account, you have to file your quarterly statements.
Unless you zeroed it out.
Right.
You got to, but if you zero it out and close the account, but you don't file your final form,
You gotta file.
you're still on their little mouse trap. You ever heard that game? Mouse trap? That's what it's like.
Yeah, it's a process.
See, the subs are here. If we'll just maybe get to the judicial and elections, and then while we do administration. So in judicial, we've got a couple of things here. On the back of the contract sheet, which we'll get to. The primary changes on the contract sheet, over on the judicial salary page, you'll see that for judicial support, there is a FY23 merit incentive along with the COLA. There's also some overtime hours built in there, a handful of overtime hours just for those unanticipated 100-person courts that can happen. office supply, operating supplies on the next tab. Going up, and we're adding a computer, just a couple $100 for extra supplies. Dues and training has dropped, and that's primarily because we don't need any new judge, we shouldn't need any new judge training next year. And then back in contracts, this is where the increase in the department comes. And there are two things here. Court bond costs, that number comes from Lee. I've got an explanation I can pour, I'm still gonna make a note for you guys where that came from. But that came from Lee, and it's basically acknowledging some pass-through costs to the city that are undeterminable. You know, it's a placeholder number, there may be more or less, but the one thing that we are proposing at staff level is a $8,000 contract line for a permanent court bailiff.
What does it say?
On contracts, it's the next to last page in the section is contracts. And that request came over from the clerk of court, I believe in fair say in conjunction with public safety, for a permanent staff, well, on a contractual basis with an outside agency, for a fixed court bailiff to provide security and screening and do all the things outside the room instead of us having to get public safety officers.
Find a pool from my court.
Yeah.
I agree with that. It's good.
What, you know?
It takes the police force, because I've seen several times you get calls while you're on duty.
Yeah.
And you have to do it at like 9 o'clock you just ended up a 12-hour shift, and that's not fun either, so it's a good thing.
Councilman Ellis, on the next last page of the contracts, we see $8,000 proposed for a court bailiff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because right now, every Friday, we generally have a schedule worked out, but things come up and we're utilizing public safety staff to be the bailiffs of the court.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what shifted away from, you know, like we were saying, hey, can you do this? You just got off work, come over here and run the court. Or you're in court later, but also you did run the court.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have a third-party contract out.
We've spoken about in the past, and it seems as though there was consensus for a permanent metal detector to get into this room.
They wand now.
Yeah,
Do they want-
I mean,
You
I've
get
been
one,
like,
so it's the same thing.
I've wondered
for
about that,
city-
about
what
being
about
in
council
here.
meetings?
City council meetings.
Well,
The state law, I don't think they'll allow you to bring, if you got a concealed weapons permit, you can't bring your gun here.
Well, I'm not worried about the people with the permit, I'm worried about people without it.
I'm talking about me.
They
So if
actually-
they
I'm
want-
talking about me. How can I have my gun here in case I need it? If somebody starts, you know,
Well, that's why,
shooting at us, what the hell?
that's why we have a
I'm
police
gonna jump
officer.
behind him.
That's why we have a police
Me
officer
too.
sitting here, but, you know, if you bring that up, they do have, like, we went to Hollow Palms and Carl Halley from the TVPC, and, yeah, they have a permanent metal detector that you walk through, but you still gotta have somebody there, but I mean, it's,
You gotta have somebody staff it.
yeah, so, I mean, you know, if you wanna look at the price of that going in, that would
I
go,
wouldn't mind.
that would go like in, Eric's budget for facilities.
Well, as long as we, at all our council meetings, they're always there, so
Yeah.
if someone were to walk in and it beeps, they're right there.
Yeah,
You can just grab them up.
I'm just saying, if you wanna look at a walkthrough, that's.
I wouldn't mind having them.
Or a panic button?
No.
No.
Strapped on?
A holster mounted to the
Yeah.
bottom.
Velcro.
Anyway, so that might be something we want to
Facilities. Where it should go.
see, just get an idea of what one costs. Andrew? Okay, thanks. Government no, we don't want a government surplus, we want one that works. Just kidding.
And then, before we let you guys loose on those subs, just elections and
Oh,
elections.
yeah, sorry, one more thing on the judicial. So to the extent that, the short-term rental recommendations are passed, we, have more enforcement resulting in violations that are occurred before the judge. That could be a considerable amount of time for,
That's
for,
big.
we'll address that.
No, I'm
in the future.
just saying, that's, you know, Some days they're in here from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, some days they're in here from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, so that's just kind of.
Their salary to the amount of time they spend, okay.
What's the 40,000?
So those are court bond costs and.
That's what he was saying, you gotta
I
find out what the
can forward you the email, but all I know is that Lee determined that number in their pass-through costs, and I have an explanation here that I can forward.
Okay.
It's about 5,000 for EDA width walkthrough for a good brain care.
So, jack up Eric's budget $5,000 if you want one.
Just somebody would have to staff it.
Well, it would be more than 5 because.
I figure we'll put 10.
Well, I'm just saying you'd have to pay electricity to get it done also. Just
Got Eric.
be an electrician.
That way before the meetings, the people go through the basket, pass the basket through and walk through it.
So elections, we're proposing $0 for 2023. Normally it's every 2 years, and you'll see that we had some extra budget in 2021 where we normally wouldn't have. That's because at the time we did the budget, we knew the 2020 costs were going to be pushed off for a year. So normally that 2021 would have been 2020 actuals, but so no money in the budget for 2023 elections. If something unanticipated happens and we have to have a special election, we said we will just deal with it. So that's everything but administration. We've got a tray of subs over there, maybe some waters, some chips, and we'll get those to you guys.
So we're doing administration and public safety today, and that's it, and then that's next Monday.
Yeah, and we may be able to knock out beach preservation real fast. That should be relatively short, and then public works next Monday. So public works and facilities.
You wanna turn us off?